Welcome to 4 Speed Ahead. I'm Craig Fuller, here with Steve Hackney, the head of solutions for Front. Steve, how are you?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Well, certainly happy to have Front back here. It's always one of my favorite demos and presentations, talking about workflow and how to improve the communications and put everybody on the same page. But for our audience that may not be familiar with Front, maybe the first time they've been exposed to it, what is Front?
Yeah, great. So Front is a modern communications platform for logistics and transportation teams. We try and bring together all kinds of messaging that you might have with customers, vendors, partners into one place, bring teams together, integrate your core business systems, and really results in being able to support your customers better, give them better experience, and be more efficient.
And you guys are based in the Bay, you're a SaaS company, but you've actually got a large roster of logistics and freight companies.
Yeah, we work with over 6,000 companies around the world. A good subset of those are logistics companies. So SSY, MNX, Global Logistics, Jarrett, Edge, Transport, Convoy, Flexport are a few of our marquee logistics and transportation customers.
So Steve, certainly a big roster of logistics companies that are on the leading edge of it, of what's happening in our industry. How do they use Front?
Right. So a lot of logistics companies are bound to communication via our antiquated communication channels like email or SMS. And so with Front, we try and replace your traditional tools and move them into a more modern interface that's designed for teams. Essentially, you'll just connect these different channels, email addresses into one place, invite teammates together, and we facilitate collaboration, workflow, and analytics that'll help you drive your business and make those operations more efficient.
And what if a company has a solution like Slack, or if you mentioned Teams being Microsoft Teams? My understanding, this is much more appropriate and ideal for external-facing communication where you have multiple stakeholders.
Yeah, in this case, the customer is the person that you're trying to make the experience the best with. Customers, partners, obviously vendors too, are all forms of external parties that are critical to the efficiency of the organization. And so we generally see that as a big distinction of what we're focused on. Another thing is that Teams and Slack are very focused on synchronous communication. So if you have an expectation of if you send somebody a Slack, they're going to get back to you really quickly. And email is, for example, a medium that people they appreciate a little bit higher resolution responses. You can take a little bit more time to come up with the right response. And so we focus on a little bit more workflow to make that process as efficient as possible.
So you're telling me if I had Front installed, I wouldn't need to have all of these thousands of emails that I get every day?
We see a significant reduction in the number of emails people get. It's just a couple of stats that we've collected along the journey. 13 hours is the typical amount of time someone spends an email over the week. I'm sure that's totally believable. You wake up in the morning, you grab your cup of coffee, and you check your email generally first thing. So we've seen people save 6 hours per employee per week, be able to respond to emails 24 hours, hours faster response times. And it's a little bit more fuzzy math, but 17% efficiency gains across the organization. We have analytics, so we can actually track that and do a ROI study for anyone that wants us to do that. But definitely some statistics there that you can hang your hat on.
Now, Steve, I'm not exaggerating. Right now, as of right now, I have 222,331 unread emails in my inbox, which is pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you see that as typical, but I'm told that's a lot.
We've seen companies that literally process 15, 20,000 emails a day. We wouldn't blink at that. And I think that it's just evidence that email is, it's like one of the things that we focus on, one of the main channels that we support with logistics companies, people that are using distribution lists or shared inboxes. These are not efficient solutions to the team-based approach to email that we need. So that's really where Front has kind of a big wedge into these companies. Once you're in your email client, wouldn't it be nice if you could also access the SMS messages to coordinate with your vendors or delivery drivers, or communicate with your customers and other mediums of communication? But yeah, that's definitely a lot of emails. I won't blink an eye at that, but that's kind of a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. No, I know it's a lot. People who see my inbox tell me it's a ton, but the problem is, having started the company for a couple years, there's a lot of lists that I happen to be on, because in the early days, your email is the company, or my email is the company. So Steve, in a typical shipment, you've got 11 individual parties, humans, that are touching that transaction. It sounds like collaborating not only just inside the company, but externally, you also have a lot of parties that are involved in it at a company. Front essentially brings that into a single platform. Is that the best way to think of it?
Absolutely, yes. So for example, a great use case for Front would be, I have a quote that I need to get back to you as quickly as possible. If I can fill that quote in a timely way, then that means I get the business. So in order to do that, I often have to coordinate with operations teams internally. I have to coordinate with drivers externally. I have to reference my TMS system. So the more that you're having to send emails around to coordinate that, SMSs, or even swiveling between one application or another, we call that swivel chair, the more that you can bring that into one centralized place and operationalize that process, the more likely you are to be able to get that business.
So if companies get pitched a lot of different software, there are a lot of solutions out there that bring collaboration, but what makes Front different is the external bringing individuals that are outside your company. Is that the best way to think of it, or is there other elements, integration and such, that people in logistics would be interested in?
Yeah, so I think the main ones are related to producing efficient responses to external parties. And a lot of the workflow that happens inside Front is internal. So for example, if you send me a message and I don't know how to answer it, is my activity to forward that message along to 15 people? Or can I invite someone in to a message to help me create a perfect response? Like we do draft editing, collaboration, comments, and that sort of thing. So it's really kind of the efficiency that we can get from an internal team to respond to external parties. That's a major use case for us. Another one is, if maybe the information I need to respond quickly isn't in somebody else's hands, maybe it's in an external system like my TMS. So being able to reference an external system in the context of your email or SMS communications is another primary use case that we see people adopt. So for example, I get a customer who's asking me about the status of a shipment. Do I have to move out of my email to the TMS to go find that? What if I can just click a button and it automatically responds to the customer with the status update? Those are other use cases that we see really improve the customer experience.
So Steve, you can integrate APIs from a TMS system into the messaging so that status updates of where the shipment's at is also automatically updated, versus pinging my inbox with another 20,000 emails. So got it.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve, 2020 has been, obviously a year for the record books. I'm not sure if it's a good year for the record books or bad. I guess it mostly bad, or at least odd, I should say. But a lot of the SaaS businesses have done exceptionally well. There's been a lot of the publicly traded companies have done well. We've seen some listings, some IPOs. You guys are in the Valley. What is your perception of 2020 as it relates to SaaS?
Yeah, obviously it's been a really tough year. Front as a company, we're a small company, but we had to transition to a remote capacity as part of that. And I believe that Front was able to keep a lot of momentum because of how we're able to collaborate. And I work a lot with customers, and being able to see the value of Front come forward, even in a remote capacity, has been very, I guess, encouraging for me. And so, yeah, I think of it like we're making the best of a bad situation, not only for Front, but hopefully those people that do have to work remotely, we can provide tools to help them maintain some efficiency. We haven't talked a lot about it, but the email is traditionally a black box. Like you really don't know what's going on. It's hard to operationalize anything that can't really look at and analyze. So the companies that have used Front have made that transition a little bit easier because of the ability to, add more staffing as people are more inefficient, and you need to add staffing to get more, to create a positive customer experience, or even more importantly, make people more efficient so they can do more with less. And so being able to kind of see the analytics, sunlight's the best disinfectant, and make sure that we can make companies move through this trying period more gracefully.
I remember in early March, I talked to the CEO of Convoy, and being based in Seattle, he told me that they basically had to go remote within basically almost overnight. And this was before the COVID situation really took hold across the country. They were one of the first to have to do that. I would imagine having automated workflow and collaboration enabled them to do it. Do you guys also see other cases in the logistics space where companies were able to sort of lean into the solution?
Absolutely, yeah. Convoy is a great example. MNX Global Logistics is another one. We have some videos on our website that are, basically attestations to how Front has made, increased accountability. That's really in a distribution list. It's very hard to know, if you send an email to a distribution list and then the team has to decide who's going to respond to that message. That's generally a point of friction. We can make sure that accountability is clear through assignments. We can make teams more efficient. One of the bigger use cases that we see people adopt, especially in these periods of transition, is SLA warnings. So being able to be notified if you're coming up against a period of time that you've defined as like ideal response times. So those more operational sides of things are pretty important too.
So you've got an element of help desk built into it, and help desk tracking.
Yeah, and really that's the way I think of it from the internal perspective. And operationally, we do work a lot like a help desk, but critically in logistics, nobody wants to be labeled as a ticket number, especially like a customer. So we try and operationalize the process without kind of moving people into a ticketing based model. And if you sent me a message, I collaborated or integrated that message in Front and responded to you, it'd be transparent to you that I used Front. It would just appear to you that I got back to you really quickly and with a good answer. And that's kind of the big distinction I'd make between Front and more of a ticketing based solution.
So Steve, the whole SaaS business is going through a lot of transition. Companies are really moving to the cloud. Logistics has been one of those sort of later adopters of cloud technology. You do have some new age companies that are doing it. Some of them you've mentioned. But what is the real, in terms of companies that may have not transitioned into the cloud, what is your recommendation on how they should handle that and think about doing that?
Yeah, we work with companies as a stopgap as they're migrating their strategy to more of a cloud-based strategy. We are a cloud company, but we can integrate backwards compatibly with any architecture that you have. So some folks are using us as a triage to say, we need to put a tourniquet on this email problem while we slowly piecemeal move over to more of a cloud-based infrastructure. And then we also see companies that have already gone into the cloud and are still not finding the kind of relief that they need in terms of email volume or operational efficiency. So I would just reach out to someone at Front if you are in either of those camps to learn more, but we can certainly help you with any path along that journey.
Well, Steve, we're a cloud-based company, but obviously I haven't solved my email problem with 222,000 unread emails, which probably I should do something about quickly, because there's a lot of people who've been unanswered. I think most of that's junk mail, by the way. But Steve, the sort of transition for the economy into a cloud-based economy, I imagine COVID's really accelerated that. You're seeing a lot more companies consider moving off-premise into the cloud. Is there any view that the cloud has been persistent in helping companies really thrive during a COVID environment?
I really think so. And technology is really one of the things that has kept the economy going. And I firmly believe that where we've ended up as a part of COVID was an eventuality. It's just nice to be able to have this interview with you from the comfort of my own home. I'd like to meet you in person, obviously, too, but that kind of deflationary quality about being able to do more with less has been a silver lining in light of COVID, for sure.
It certainly has. I mean, we used to do these events in person. They took a lot of expense, both by us and companies that are participating. But the nice thing is, as you mentioned, you can do this remote. It's all in the cloud. It's very easy to sort of scale it. You do impact personal relationships in terms of that. One of the things that we've heard a lot about and we've seen is that we're able to actually sell large enterprise deals without ever making an in-person sales call. Are you guys also seeing the same thing?
Yeah, we definitely have seen a lot more kind of appetite for people to evaluate or just communicate and just work more out of the cloud. I think it becomes more important than ever to make each of those interactions professional, engaging, and supporting. And so I think that's kind of some tailwinds for Front as well, because we definitely have seen a lot of success in companies that want to portray a more customer-centric view and to engage with customers in a more kind of communication-centric way. And so for those reasons, I see both the cloud in general and Front specifically helping. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens after we had some level of cure and there's a sort of return to companies feel confident to go back. Where we all end up, and I suspect things will be quite different and will continue to evolve over time. As you mentioned, it feels like 10 years of technology and societal evolution that's taken place in really 6 months.
100% agree. I still think that a smile and a handshake will be the right way to close a big deal, and that is something that will never go away. I hope, but anything that leads into that more efficiently is for the better. And I'm looking forward to a world where we can get back to the smile and the handshake type approach.
Well, likewise, Steve, are you guys venture funded or is this bootstrapped?
Yeah, we're venture funded. We're very secure in the amount that we have in the war chest. We'll be around a long time, and really a lot of runway to solve the problems that we're currently having a lot of fun solving.
Well, fantastic. Steve, really appreciate your time today. Thanks for coming on Full Speed Ahead. And I will take you up on that handshake and come in person when we can actually accomplish that.
It would be my pleasure.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. That is Front. You can check them out on their website at frontapp.com.